Good afternoon and welcome to our NLDC conversation that is going to invite you to think about how to get more involved with CUR and the next steps to becoming an elected leader. I am Maria Iaculo Bird. I am immediate past president of the Council on Undergraduate Research, and I am the chair of the National NLDC. You can go to the next slide. And this is our agenda for this afternoon. We're going to introduce ourselves and then go on to basic and important organizational information, open positions, competencies, the vetting and election process, and to look at the timeline. Next slide. In my day job, which sometimes goes into the evening and weekends too, I am assistant provost for research at Pace University, New York City. I'm also clinical professor of history. We have a second campus in Westchester. My involvement with CUR began in 2013 as an elected leader, as a representative in the Arts and Humanities Division. I went on to become Arts and Humanities Chair, and then was elected to the board, and then entered the presidential pathway. Has Alexa joined us? No, then we can go to Carol. We'll follow the sequence of the slide.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carol Strong. I am a professor of political science at the University of Arkansas at Monticello, and I have been very pleased to have been part of CUR since 2012. I started out by serving as the secretary for the Social Sciences Division and went on to chair it from 2017 to 2020. After that, I started going into other directions. I did some work on the advocacy committee and was able to take some undergraduate students to meet their representatives in Congress, as well as to learn to advocate for CUR more generally. And then most recently, I was working with Posters on the Hill and selection committee and had a lot of fun with that. And now I've moved on to where you see me today. So.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Janetta Sims. I'm at the University of Central Oklahoma, and my involvement with CUR came after my engagement in undergraduate research. So I didn't really know much about CUR, that CUR existed. And yet I was working in undergraduate research and really founded Diverse Student Scholars, which is really my way of giving back to the academic community. And then later found out about CUR and the wonderful colleagues and the people who are part of it. Since that time, I've served as a counselor in the old structure, now a new counselor in the new structure, served on several different other committees, internationalization, and then the Executive Officer Search Committee that brought us our current Executive Officer, Lindsay, chaired the leadership kind of prototype working group, which is beautiful because some of that work you'll see today, and then also now serve on the Nominations Leadership Development Committee. So it's been a wonderful way to give back, and I've thoroughly enjoyed working with the individuals on the grid.
Hi all, my name is Kevin Bonine at the University of Arizona, and my involvement with CUR specifically is fairly new, the past few years. The University of Arizona was involved in the CUR Transformations Project, the sort of pilot funded by NSF, and that's really given us some wind in our sails here on campus. And as a result, one of the things is a new Office of Undergraduate Research that I direct, that's now a couple of years old. And I'm just excited to be part of CUR, part of what it promotes as far as the value of being part of a an institution of higher learning and what students get out of that, right? Connecting students to the faculty passions is what really makes a difference in students' lives.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Schneider. I serve as Assistant Vice Provost of Undergraduate Studies at the University of Central Florida, who's previously the founding director of our Office of Undergraduate Research. I've been involved with a volunteer position in CUR since 2010 and served several rounds in the URPD, now just URP, I think, division. And now in the transition reorganization, so as a counselor then, I'm a counselor again, but in the new structure as a counselor. And so, and also work with the at-large division now. So I'm glad to be here today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patricia Soto from the University of California, Merced. Actually, this is the first time that I am a member of a committee at CUR. I have been a member of this community since I was a postdoc 20 years ago. And finally, I'm having the chance to give back to this community that has helped me so much structure how I lead undergraduate research experiences.
Has Paul joined
So
us?
I don't think Paul has joined us yet, but Sylvia, you're muted.
Yes.
Definitely. I don't see Paul. Is Paul here? Okay, so I'll go next. I'm Sylvia Ronco. I'm a long-time volunteer at CUR. Many of you know that because you also have been long-time volunteers. So I actually started my first counselor term in the chemistry division. I started in 2000. And so I started when I was still a faculty member at the University of South Dakota in the chemistry department. The chair of my department, Roy Singstrom, had been the first president of CUR from a public institution. And so he was a great mentor, and I follow his CUR steps. So over the years, of course, I moved from the University of South Dakota to the Research Corporation, which is not a corporation, but a private foundation. If you're in the sciences, I hope you know of Research Corp because we have worked a lot over the decades, or many, many decades, with undergraduate research, with especially early career faculty in chemistry, physics, and astronomy. And today I'm the director of a program that it identifies outstanding teacher scholars in research universities and POIs, and part of what their proposals have when they apply is a really great educational plan that means not only teaching but mentoring, belonging, inclusivity, undergraduate research, and so on. And so after being a chemistry counselor for many years, I was the chair of the division. I was part of the board and several times for several reasons. So I became the pandemic president of CUR. So that was in the year 2020, and worked really closely with Lindsay in the national and the whole national office during those challenging times. It was a great time. I enjoyed my time and the opportunity to use my expertise to support CUR. And now I'm part of the NLDC. And also I should say that we're going to talk about governance structure today. And I was the person who led the committee that that developed the new governance structure. So that's all now. So next is Tina.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tina Zecker. I am the Director for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activity at Northern Arizona University. And I started my volunteerism with CUR in 2018 when it was a year after I took on this role at NAU. And I, like many of my colleagues here, I started out as a counselor under the old model, and now I'm a counselor under the new model. I started out in the URP D division, which now is URP, but I'm currently part of the education division since that is where my research lies. And but fairly new to this NLDC group and have served on other committees, and I'm happy to see those of you who are here today to learn more about getting involved.
My name is Pam Dodge. I am working at the actual Council on Undergraduate Research. I am the Director of Organizational and Governance Operations. So one of the things that I get to help support is the National Leadership and Development Committee as their liaison.
And Alexa has joined us.
I was late. My name is Alexa Sand. I am the Associate Vice President for Research at Utah State University, where I also direct the undergraduate research program. I've been a member of CUR since 2008, and I joined the inaugural group of counselors, as we were then, now representatives, in the arts and humanities, I think the next year in 2009. And I've served on a number of different committees over my time at CUR. I was the division chair for 3 years. And yeah, I enjoy my work with CUR greatly. I think it's an important network of people to be connected to.
Thank you. And surely listening to our experiences gives you a sense of how important CUR has been to us and the work that we have done for CUR. And we'll have an opportunity during the questions and answers to say more about what being part of CUR has meant to us. All right, why don't we move to the next slide? So our CUR core values. CUR is committed to fostering a culture that models our core values. The list here of excellence, respect and integrity, flexibility, responsiveness, and innovation, recognizing and valuing differences. And we actively work to create an environment where our members feel valued, supported, and empowered, using these values to contribute to CUR as we work together to advance undergraduate research. And we strive to lead. We strive to lead by example and to embed these values in all the work we do, in our events, policies, processes, practices, and in our relationships, all working together to advance the mission and vision of CUR. So excellence in all that we do, respect and integrity in all our interactions, flexibility, responsiveness, and innovation in all our implementations, and recognizing and valuing differences across our community. Next slide. And here, the CUR strategic plan, we know that this was developed 24-25, released in June 2025. And so we're calling it CUR 2030 in that forward-looking thinking over the next 5 years to bring us strong to 2030. And surely as an elected volunteer, one would play a key role in ensuring that governance, foresight, and strategic thinking is aligned with the strategic plan. And we have 3 key goal areas: empowering the undergraduate community to foster professional growth, collaboration, and the long-term impact of CUR members; driving excellence and innovation in undergraduate research, ensuring institutions make good use of CUR resources to achieve excellence aligned with their mission; and then to elevate undergraduate research, ensuring the value of undergraduate research is recognized and leveraged by stakeholders, institutions, and policymakers. Next slide.
So this is like an infographic of the CUR structure. So I would like to say, first of all, that the CUR structure supports diversity, the CUR values, and future growth. That's what we kept in mind when we work in this new governance structure that started a couple of years ago. So this structure has 3 branches, which are the governance, programmatic, and operational branches. So the governance branch includes the board of directors, the CUR council, and governance committees. And so all these bodies set the goals and directions for CUR. So it's composed of strategic leaders who use their expertise to provide these directions and goals. And so very importantly here, the members of governance represent the whole organization, or what we like to say, they wear the CUR hat. So they look at an organization as a whole, not just personal or divisional views. They try to see and work upon what is best for CUR. So then we have the programmatic branch that is made up of volunteers from the CUR's 13 divisions. These are disciplinary divisions, and their members engage other members based on academic disciplines and advise governance on community needs and support CUR through advocacy and volunteer work. And the third branch, which I would argue that is the most important because this is composed by the people who are in the trenches every single day, is the operational branch that includes the executive officer, Lindsay Curry, and the national office staff, so here represented by Pam Dodge. So this exceptional staff handle daily tasks to implement the board's vision, but also communicate extensively with the broad CUR community. So next slide.
Okay, so when we think about how to visualize or envision this capacity of volunteer leaders that are all serving and representing different areas within the structure of CUR, we can think about it from individuals who kind of like me when I first started didn't know much about it, right? And individuals who are heavily invested and involved, right, in shaping and charting the future and direction of CUR. The groups that are just getting started tend to be individuals who are either reviewing or maybe attending a conference or maybe just casually reading SPUR, right? Their level of involvement as a volunteer is very minimal, right? But what we're talking about today are these other two groups where there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of involvement, and we characterize those as being thought leaders and strategic leaders. And the goal is that from CUR's perspective, we seek to cultivate leaders, seek to cultivate individuals who personally and professionally have the capacity and benefit from serving CUR as a thought leader or serving CUR as a strategic leader. And so thought leaders would be individuals willing to serve as counselors or division representatives, and they can expect to serve in ways that have time commitments that are more than just a casual reader of SPUR, but perhaps not as much as being in the strategic leader category. On the other hand, strategic leaders are individuals who would serve in the capacity of a board director or an officer, or even perhaps on this nominations and leadership development committee, and the time investment and the expected type of work output is going to be relatively high. We also conceptualize these two columns of thought leaders and strategic leaders as individuals really cultivating and developing certain competencies. And so the structure of the presentation, you'll be able to hear more in detail about the competencies that are associated with thought leader and strategic leaders for their particular roles. And so for that conversation, I'll turn things over to Carol.
So one of the things I love about CUR is that they really do embrace the idea that leadership is not just a certain personality type, the idea that you're either a leader or you're not. And as Janetta was saying, we develop leaders, we look for people that have competencies, but we recognize that different people have different competencies. And that's why there's so many different ways to get involved with CUR. And if you're looking at becoming a council or divisional representative, or even if you are starting to look at going higher up into the executive parts or roles of CUR, you want to have a series of different competencies that go from thought leadership and engagement to communication and collaboration, and an awareness of the CUR organizational awareness. All of these come together. I think that thought leadership is so important because it really is learning to think outside the box and seeing how to critique what's happening, being able to challenge what's come before, but in a way that recognizes the value of it and trying to find ways to move forward. It means that you have to understand the key issues that impact CUR, but also what impacts higher ed and undergraduate research at this time, because obviously this changes depending on what's happening within the country, within the university structure, but yet the importance of undergraduate research never sort of leaves the arena. And so you want to be able to find creative and flexible ways to find toolkits for people that are trying to figure out how to even get started, that have tools in there that can help them design new initiatives and find ways to do educational offerings that ultimately will reflect the experience they have in mentoring undergrads, but inspire others to try it for the first time and realize that teaching is so much more than standing in front of the classroom and just talking to students. It's about getting them engaged. And I think CUR as an organization reflects that. They want you to be engaged. They want you to actually be part of the way forward so that we can see different perspectives. And that brings us to the communication and collaboration. Clearly, you have to be able to communicate, but this is something, again, that you can actually train yourself for. You want to make sure that you're always considering how you should communicate across stakeholders as well as across the organizational environment, and trying to say what people need to say, give them the tools they need to do to be as successful as they can be. We really want people who are ambassadors for CUR. If you love undergraduate research, you are in the right place. If you value what we can do for our young people, again, you are in the right place, because we have a collaborative spirit, and we are very, very supportive of team building. It's something that you're not alone. You can actually be part of a bigger whole that creates competencies not only within ourselves, but within our students as well. And you've been given a very, very good understanding of the CUR organizational awareness. And I think that obviously when you come into these positions, you need to understand how each different branch of the leadership team works, but also just to understand how they all work together to try and bring about the other competencies that are so important.
So I'll speak a little bit about the division representative role. The divisions are really, in my view, the beating heart of CUR. It's the grassroots level of involvement that can really get you launched in terms of developing your leadership within CUR. The divisions are made up of representatives. There are 13 divisions, and they range from really broadly defined arts and humanities or social sciences to very specific physics or chemistry. And that has to do with the history of CUR and its origins. It was started by a bunch of chemists. So if you're wondering why that is the case, why there's not a sort of physical sciences as opposed to arts and humanities, which is enormous. So these 13 divisions, the representatives really work to advance undergraduate research within either their discipline or their group of disciplines. And they do this through a number of means. One is really just networking. It's such a fantastic opportunity to talk to and engage with other people who care about undergraduate research in your disciplinary area. The disciplines also host a number of activities, training, workshops, conversations throughout the year, provide educational content through newsletters and through blogs, that sort of thing. Each division kind of has its own ecosystem. Really, the whole effort of the divisions is to create and to foster communities within CUR where people have sort of shared experiences and shared concerns. You know, doing undergraduate research in chemistry is obviously very different from doing it in health sciences. So, you know, talking to other people, learning from their experiences, thinking about what evidence-based practices are in our disciplines. The representatives support the members of the division, as I mentioned, through things like newsletters, training opportunities, professional recognition. Almost all the divisions now offer some kind of award that acknowledges excellent mentorship within undergraduate research. And also many of the divisions use their admittedly fairly puny budget to support student engagement in research. So, you know, all of these activities that the divisions do and that the representatives basically drive serve the CUR strategic plan, the mission, the vision, and the values as stated. I think there's another slide. Slide 10. Yes. So there are an unlimited number of members in every division, but the division sort of council is made up of up to 24 division representatives. That means that there are almost always positions open because, you know, these 3-year terms that people serve, some people want to stand for re-election, others have the experience and then decide it's not for them, or they move on to more engaged positions of leadership, for example, as counselors or executive track. So, you know, there's a fair amount of, I would say, fresh talent coming into that pool constantly. And it's a great place for us to look for people who are going to take on those further leadership roles. Most divisions meet regularly on Zoom throughout the year to talk about what they're going to be doing and how they're going to implement their you know, agenda for meeting CUR's goals. You're also expected to attend an annual division meeting. Basically, at the annual leadership meeting, you know, your division breaks out and meets. And in order to be selected or to be elected as a division representative, you get vetted by this organization, the National Leadership Development Committee, I believe we are, NLDC. I never know what the acronyms stand for. And there's a ballot, and any member of the division can vote, and you can read in the elections, obviously, you can read the sort of biographies of the different folks who are running for those open positions. And of course, each division will have a variable number of seats open in any given election cycle based on previous representation. So I really encourage people who haven't been involved beyond the level of membership to sort of start here. It's a great way to learn all of those sort of the last points in Carol's presentation, like how does CUR work? Your first big leadership meeting will be completely confusing and there will be a million acronyms that you need explained, but really one of the best things about the division representative role is the mentorship you get from the other representatives who maybe have a little more experience. And I say that in the presence of my own mentor, Maria, who sort of chivied me into a leadership role pretty much as far as I wanted to go in leadership. But it was great. It was great to have that mentorship. Thanks.
So I'm going to share a little bit about the counselor positions and what that looks like as a, from my understanding, newer part of this structure with CUR. But the divisions really all are definitely that grassroots place. And then I was involved in those for 6 years, and I have been a counselor more recently, where you start to connect all of those dots together and pulls a greater kind of bigger ecosystem. And I've learned a lot from this about how CUR works, and have been involved with things like the strategic plan, and different people come in and talk to this group. But it is made up of a wider variety of expertise within the counselor, and has divisional leadership and members. And the 2 years I've served on it, we've looked at different things related to trends and opportunities and how we can support the board as well. But they definitely serve as kind of the ambassadors between all of undergraduate research and the Council of Undergraduate Research. But I will say on the next slide, it is this year there is only one position for this area. So this is something to put on everyone's radar even more coming forward, because there'll be a lot of openings for counselors next year. So the group is 2 representatives from every division. So as Alexa was saying, 2 from each one of those make up the counselors, plus the president-elect, the treasurer, and an executive officer. We do meet 4 times a year, plus this year we have 3 different working groups working on other things that are meeting periodically as well. And the expectation is that the counselors attend some of the other important CUR administrative meetings throughout the year. So this year, there's one position available in the URP division only. Maybe this is like, other than the president track, one of the most competitive options that we're saying. But next year, from my understanding, there'll be many options here. So this is a great thing for everyone to think about for future, because most of us currently will be rotating off and we'll be looking for new leadership and support with the CUR counselors. I'll turn this back over to Maria.
Maria, you're muted.
To think now about strategic leader competencies. So if we consider that the board is setting the strategic agenda and then guiding it, and that national NLDC is recruiting, vetting, and deciding on the leadership pipeline for the board and the presidential pathway, this is also incredibly important for the strategic development of CUR. And so in thinking about strategic leadership, CUR is looking for individuals who have had experience leading initiatives, strategic initiatives, as managers, as administrators, as chairs, and the ability to lead complex projects. So that's a way to be thinking about strategic leadership for our strategic board and the strategic work of national NLDC. In addition, the idea of servant leadership is incredibly important, because the servant leader will prioritize the needs of the organization, the needs of the community, the needs of the team. And when we think about the structure of CUR, there are teams throughout in the work that we do. And team is also essential for the board and for the executive committee. So to have that mindset is incredibly important. To be a team builder and not prioritizing one's own agenda. For communication and collaboration, of course, to be able to speak effectively, to have a professional deportment, but to also ensure that with that communication, one is a collaborator, one is going to be engaging diverse stakeholders, going to be inclusive in the way in which one conducts outreach. And it's all designed, of course, to maximize the collective impact for the mission and vision of CUR. So collaboration is truly essential, and I see it very much tied to the idea of servant leadership and team building. And strategic thinking and foresight, well, when we think about foresight, a forward-thinking mindset, to always be looking ahead, to be trying to anticipate, to understand what the trends are. And again, having been involved in different kinds of projects, we know that if we've had those kinds of experiences, and at the same time, CUR has given us opportunities in the professional development opportunities of different kinds of programmings to help cultivate that forward-thinking mindset. And another part of this is the ability to use data for making good decisions that are always aligned in strategic thinking for the organization. Then governance policy and nonprofit expertise. Well, at this stage, to have a deep understanding of governance, of the bylaws, the strategic plan, and I would also say, the culture of CUR. The culture of CUR is very important as well. And the different elements here are also informing that inclusivity and the communication and the collaboration to work for the health of the organization, its sustainability, to be fulfilling the strategic plan, in fulfilling its mission and vision. And so to have the kinds of experiences that would support the guidance of nonprofit financial responsibility so that CUR indeed is sustainable as well as compliant. And to have some idea, some familiarity with nonprofit development and nonprofit organizations. And the fact that we're from the university community is going to be very helpful in understanding that. And then finally, the last piece here, the organizational engagement and impact. What that's referring to is to have a history of positive engagement throughout CUR, throughout the community, with the national office, in whatever engagement you have had, committees, programs, divisions, that it's a positive engagement and that one has been doing work that's been in alignment with the strategic plan and the mission and vision. And next, I have one more. Yes, I have another.
No, I think
No, we're back to Sylvia.
yes. Thank you, Maria. So Maria gave a good introduction of the strategic leadership that we need for the board of directors. And so this year, once again, we have open positions at the board. So, but before describing those positions, I would like to say that the roles that the board members play are key leadership roles because they help guide the organization's direction. The board members ensure good governance, responsible governance. Like an example would be like when we went through the pandemic, there were a lot of things we need to change suddenly because the organization was put at risk in terms of having to cancel events, having commitments that we couldn't fulfill because of the pandemic. So board members need to be responsible, they need to be nimble, they need to accept that sometimes there's change that happens. And as we keep saying, they need to wear the organizational hat, just this high level thinking and strategic leadership, as we say. So board members also represent CUR in higher education and research communities and need to be able to convey the strategic goals and what the community, what the organization is about to the broader community. So some of the key responsibilities of the board are, as we mentioned before, setting strategic directions. So that shapes the CUR's mission and long-term goals, but also stay ahead of what's happening in this challenging and unpredictable times. It's very hard, but we try to really, really be focused on that mindset of what's better for the organization, but also how we need to prepare our students, our undergraduate students, to be career ready, to be ready to go to the workforce. And in the sciences, typically we try to prepare our students to go to graduate school, a PhD, but these days maybe it's different, with the changing landscape. We need to make sure that students have the skills they need to go out in the workforce. That could be something completely different than what it was before. So as I mentioned, we need to ensure good governance, oversee finances, follow rules and policies, make sure that CUR is not at risk, as I mentioned, that they follow the policies that they need to follow for the states they are based in, act responsible on CUR's behalf, right? And so we need to act as ambassadors, as I said before, promote CUR and undergraduate research to members, funders, and the general public, which these days also is a big thing, that we need to be good at communicating with the public and tell them the value of education, the value, in my case, because I'm a scientist, I always talk about science, but be able to communicate science to the public. Also, as Maria mentioned, collaboration is a big issue. We need to collaborate as board members. We need to collaborate across all different angles at CUR. and we need to collaborate with other divisions to try to bring forces together and work with staff and volunteers, all this together to achieve CUR's goals. And really importantly, as I mentioned before, look ahead. So Lindsay and I used to talk about, as a president and executive officer, we need to look at least what's going to happen 5 years from now, 5 years or even more from now. So just keep an eye on that, spot trends, risks, opportunities to keep CUR adaptable, inclusive, and also helpful, so the members find the value of CUR. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, there are some openings for board of directors. So the composition of the board is 9 directors, 4 officers, who actually there is a slide following this, which is the president track, like starts with treasurer, president-elect, president and past president, and then the executive officer. So for the elections, we call for nominations. And so board candidates are vetted by NLDC, which is this committee, who presents a slate for approval to the board, and the board votes for that. So for the positions that are open, we have the position for director. There are 3 positions with terms of 3 years each. And there are other 3 positions with 1-year term each. So this is because of the structure of the new governance that we are rolling on now, right? And then there is the presidential line. So there is an opening for the presidential line. And this is, as I mentioned before, there's 1 position and it is a 4-year term. Okay, so next slide.
And then to consider the CUR presidential pathway, which is a 4-year commitment, and individuals in the presidential line also serve as officers of the board and make up the executive committee in addition to the executive officer. And so what you can see outlined here is that there is this rotation. And for the first year, the treasurer also serves as chair of finance, which is also a governance committee, and a member of the council. So that learning is going on as a member of the council, because then as president-elect, one is then the chair of the council. And then the year of the presidency, one serves as chair of the board, as chair of the executive committee, and chair of the compensation committee. And then as immediate past president, to serve as chair of the national NLDC, and also chair of a strategic planning task force. And actually this year, as we are all working together on the strategic plan, each member of the executive committee of the presidential pathway is serving on a task force. Next slide. And so in terms of time commitment, yes, time commitment is high, but there's also variation within that. And so for the board directors, the average would be 5 hours a month, but the board officers do more. So it's maybe 2 to 5 hours per week. And it varies. It depends upon, of course, what's happening. For the board, attend approximately 5 to 6 board meetings per year. And these are virtual, 3 hours each, with the exception of one, which is in person for a day and a half and is structured to precede Connect UR. And of course, participation in CUR strategic initiatives, task force, board working groups, and also providing, leadership to them as well. And then all of us, I think all members really are ambassadors for CUR, and ambassadors at least for undergraduate research. But then in elected roles, we're all ambassadors. And that continues through the board, and that continues through the presidency. So to be active externally in advocacy, outreach, and building partnerships. And then as part of what one does as a board member is also have time to address foresight, to reflect, to better inform one's decision-making for the organization, for that long-term sustainability, and of course, for the impact of undergraduate research. Next slide.
Okay, so the final set of positions available related to the strategic leader competencies is this role that many of us are in right now when we introduced ourselves, and that's serving on the Nominations and Leadership Development Committee. This group, as you've seen throughout the other slides in the slide deck, is truly responsible for the recruitment and the vetting of candidates in each of the positions associated with the board of directors, the presidential role, and then of course for the NLDC. And the process of vetting for this group is one that requires confidentiality. It involves fairness and transparency in terms of how individuals are able to be considered for each of these opportunities. And so the role in vetting then is to identify and to recruit individuals that really have strategic leader competencies. And those competencies could be attained through CUR. Those competencies might also be attained through outside work that an individual may have completed and done along with their involvement and understanding of CUR and its organizational structure and processes. They may have had leadership opportunities that they've completed to attain those competencies in other roles as well. So this group, the NLDC, vets the board level candidates that are presented to the board for approval, and this group also vets the divisional seat candidates where those individuals stand for election by all of the CUR members. The composition is 6 divisional seats and 3 council seats. And of course, Maria in her capacity this year as our immediate past president, that's the composition of the NLDC. And you can go to the next slide. So when you think about this as an opportunity, there really are 2 paths, if you notice. Well, 3, I suppose, if you consider the presidential immediate past president role, but we're not, you know, that's something different. That's sort of different. But in our case, for those of us who are here not because we're immediate past president, we arrived here in really one of 2 ways. And so when we made our introductions at the start of this, you saw on that opening slide that some individuals are on the NLDC because they are representing the council. Others are on the NLDC, I shouldn't say representing because we're representing CUR at this level, but we're on the NLDC because we were elected by our council, or we were on the NLDC because we were stood as a division seat representative. And so there kind of are pathways that are a little bit different in terms of how individuals can be elected. But the time commitment is high, not high necessarily all year, but certainly high during the months in which individuals are being recruited, which happens year long, but mainly during those months where individuals are submitting materials, and then this group, this committee, is going through the process of vetting and also interviewing each of the candidates. And so this does involve high time commitments, you know, in the months that are kind of November, December, January, in which individuals are being presented for this process of having been vetted, and then the timeline that the national office has given us for getting individuals ready to be able to stand, notified in essence, to be able to stand for election. We have meetings virtually, this group does, and the terms are a 2-year term. And so this year, there are 5 seats available. 3 of those seats are divisional seats, which means individuals will apply for the opportunity, and then this Nominations Leadership Development Committee vets them, and then they stand for election by all CUR members. And then 2 of those seats are seats that are voted on from and by the council. And so the pathway for 2 of those council seats is by virtue of an individual being first elected to the council. And then after being elected as a member of the council, then they could be considered for one of the 2 council seats that comprise the Nominations and Leadership Development Committee. That hopefully that's not clear as mud to you, but just know that the Nominations and Leadership Development Committee has opportunities available for you, whether you sit on the council or whether you have interest in serving as a division seat representative to the council. And most importantly, the role of this group is important because of the process of vetting both the current leaders that are in CUR and then also shaping CUR's future leadership through its selection of the slate that then gets approved by others. All right, I'll turn things back over to Tina.
Thanks, Janetta. So you've heard a lot of information about the volunteer opportunities that are available through CUR. And really and truly, this is an organization that thrives and is successful because of the volunteers and the commitment of the volunteers. And so for those of you who are thinking about this, if you are a CUR member, then you are in the right place, and if you're committed to undergraduate research, you are the right person for one of these roles. And so we hope that you will consider thinking about a role that makes sense to you so that you can contribute to the work that CUR is doing to continue to advocate for undergraduate research. You'll get a chance. We only have a few minutes left, but you can, we'll be happy to share why many of us choose to do this and have chosen to be volunteers for several years within CUR, and do give our time to making sure that this organization continues to be successful. And you saw even some of the roles do require a large amount of time, and we're all very busy people, and yet we still keep doing this. And that's because I think that alone speaks to the impact that it can have in getting involved, and the networking that you have, and working with the colleagues that are here and beyond, and learning from others who are just as passionate about undergraduate research as we all are, and then giving back to those who are just entering into the undergraduate research and being able to offer that to students. So the important thing to note is if you are interested in this, you can self-nominate yourself. You can put in a self-nomination. That closes on November 24th. So you have just over a month to put your name in. It's a pretty easy process. I think the first time I did this, I kept waiting for someone to have to put my name in. And so I just want to help you understand, don't wait for someone else. If you want to do this, you can make it happen. And so you can head over to the link that's been shared in the chat and submit that nomination form to become a member of one of the divisions, or maybe if you're already a little further along, consider one of those, possibly those board positions that are open, or a counselor position, filling one of those other openings that are currently available. Go to the next slide. So, says maybe the link's not working. I have one here. We'll try. That should get you to the right place. Try that one. So nominations are open right now. Again, mark your calendar, November 24th. That's the last day to submit your nomination to be considered for one of these volunteer roles. And just to give you an idea of how the process will work then is February 17th, ballots will be sent out to CUR members to vote. And those voting structures, vary based on what we've shared earlier. The election cycle is open for a month, and then you will find out between April 1st and 15th, with the public announcement being May 15th. And you are signing up to start your term as of June 1st. And that term will vary whether you do one of those 1-year positions, 3-year positions. There's some 2-year positions in there. So make sure that if you're considering one of these roles, that you are thinking about what that obligation is and making sure that you're able to commit that time. So important dates, most importantly, mark your calendar, November 24th. That's the first one you have to meet, and the rest of it kind of happens naturally on its own.